Special open session of the MRH Board of Education to order at 6:30 p.m. on November 16th, 2023. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Can I get a motion and a second for an approval of the agenda?
Move to approve the agenda as presented.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item 3.01, oral interviews of MRH Board of Education candidates. I would like to welcome our three candidates running for the appointment seat to please join us at the front of the room here. You've got a handout in your seat. We have from left to right, Brian Matz, Julie Francois, and Corinne Char. Thank you, each of you, for your interest in this position, and welcome. We're really encouraged to have such a large cohort competing for this seat tonight, so thank you. It's gratifying that you'd like to deepen your service with the district. Before we begin, I will note that we can only one candidate tonight. So I want to encourage each of you to consider other opportunities to deepen your service with the district. I will note that candidate filing for board seats for the April election opens on Tuesday, December 5th, and continues through Tuesday, December 29th. The district will have 2 3-year director positions open and 1 1-year director position carrying the unexpired term that we are appointing tonight open for filing. I would also like to note that the board is currently accepting applications from community members to serve on our strategic plan committees. Those applications are being accepted on a rolling basis, and additional information is available at the district website. The board has selected 4 questions for each of you to answer. For the first question, we will invite you to respond in the order that the board received your application. We will rotate the order of subsequent responses so that each candidate has an opportunity to answer at least one question first. I ask you to please limit your responses to 2 to 3 minutes for each question so that we have sufficient time for every candidate to answer each question. After your responses, board members will be invited to ask clarifying questions to each of you if necessary. So we'll start with Christy.
Hi, good evening, guys. The question I'm going to ask is actually a 2-part question, and I don't know if you guys are already aware that it will be Corinne, Julie, and then Brian answering. So what skills and experiences would you bring to your service on the board? And the second part of that is, how do you see yourself using those skills in a governance capacity?
So we'll start with Corinne.
So I'm Corinne. I've only been in Maplewood about 3 years. We moved here specifically for the schools. I've got a son who's going to be starting in January with a combination of SSB and MRH. And I'm excited for the opportunity to meet all of you as well. In terms of kind of what experience I have, my bachelor's goes back to education. I got certification for elementary ed, and then in the era where you can still just praxis into middle school, went ahead and did the middle school math praxis. So those were my kind of initial certifications. I actually worked in education at the zoo for a year and then went on to get a master's in social work at Brown School. I currently work in 2 positions, one through Barnes-Jewish Hospital, doing social work through emergency and psychiatry there. And then I am also a private practice therapist at a practice specializing in twice exceptional students. Clinically, that's my passion, is working with twice exceptional, in particular the more autism spectrum, but also some of the ADHD, and then looking at some of the early onset psychosis, behavioral challenges. I am a neurodiverse parent of a neurodiverse child, and I feel like that experience lends itself to being on board in terms of contributing different perspective, different experience, particularly in the collaboration with SSD. I think from a social work perspective, all of the skills in terms of assessment, crisis management, encouraging student agency, and community involvement are all really pertinent. And I think that, coming into an era where schools are being held responsible for so much more than test scores, being able to navigate mental health crises and issues of diversity, both in terms of religious diversity in Maplewood, in terms of LGBTQ, and then especially that neurodiversity component that is becoming more acknowledged, and that seems to really be something that school districts everywhere having to find new and exciting ways to work through.
All right, yeah, no, so my turn. So skills and experiences I would bring to the board, definitely from my volunteering and current enrollments and boards. So I serve as on the board of Good Shepherd School for Children, which is a nonprofit daycare out of Reef Court. It's actually the daycare my kids went to before they enrolled at MRH. It has a mission of inclusion for all children, from 6 weeks old up until 5 years of age. And so they have, OT, PT rooms, et cetera. And we actually enrolled in that school not knowing we needed it, and then learned later that my son has autism and we did need it, right? And they actually helped us with the diagnosis and helped us with the transition for MRH. And so whenever I find a passion, whenever someone gives to me, I definitely want to give back. And so that's where my resume kind of shows that. And so I also volunteered heavily for the PTO. I'm on the board for Mosaic Services, the City of Maplewood, Parks and Recreation Commission, which actually be right now on City Hall. So there's just a lot of things that I do just to help, right? I'm the person that hardly says no, especially if I have a passion around it. So I definitely bring that skill set to the board. And so the governance capacity, I think definitely having worked on the Good Shepherd School for Children board from 2019 on through COVID. Granted, we only have an enrollment of 80, so I do not want to say that any of my experiences compare to what the board had to deal with during those times. But certainly running a daycare runs its own challenges when parents need to get back to work. The staff wants more pay. Turnover is heavy, and things are just tight. Had it not been for PPP loans and all of the other things in the foundation that we were actually founded upon to begin with, there's no way we would have survived. And so, I have those experiences, I think, and I can bring that knowledge toward this, right? And at least knowing maybe this much about what you dealt with in that time frame and the board has seen.
Yeah, thank you. My name is Brian Matz, and a number of similarities with my two colleagues here. I bring to the board here 20 plus years of combined experience on multiple other boards, serving as executive director of one, treasurer of another, and essentially regularly in the area of finance and accounting. Those experiences have helped me understand a lot of different kind of group dynamics and the needs to distribute resources equitably across a divergent number of constituencies in our organizations. I also bring 20 years of experience as an educator, and so both in at a middle school, high school in Texas, and then in the collegiate area. So I bring certainly an awareness working with students with a range of abilities and diverse interests and diverse needs, the kind of education experiences I've had. I think mirror a number of the challenges that teachers in the schools here also face. And I bring a certain amount of wisdom of how that's been dealt with, how I've been able to deal with it, how my colleagues and how our institutions have dealt with those things. But so those two, I think, are really important for contributing to the work of this board. And the other, probably the other few other areas, I really just bring a non-partisan demeanor to pretty much a lot of conversations and context. And I enjoy digging very deeply into the data. I'm probably maybe, you might say I have an inquisitive demeanor, particularly in regards to data and data sets. Some people might even say start with a skeptical attitude about the data and what it's presenting to me. And as I look at what the actual work of this board as you come to meet each week, you're being presented with lots of different reports, lots of data sets. I've been through all of the board notes, all the meeting minutes, all of the reports you've received over the last 2 years. I mean, it's just a vast amount of information. And so bringing somebody onto the board who is a quick learner, who brings experience of working on boards and also managing organizations, and being able to distill that vast amount of data into a sort of a meaningful expression for the benefit of the constituents here in the MRH district, I believe that will be a help to you.
Thank you.
So I'm going to ask the next question. We're going to go with Julie first, Brian, then Corinne. The board has made a commitment to supporting all students through its educational equity policy and LGBTQIA resolution. Please speak about how you would uphold and expand that commitment. So Julie, you want to start?
Sure, yeah, certainly. No, Tuesday there was the Schlafly event where we had a trans person speaking to us, about things that we can do to support students, and I was certainly interested because it's something that I admire this board for taking that stance, especially in the state of Missouri. And what I would do to help support that and promote and keep that going is, Dr. Jameson mentioned, they were going to look through the curriculum, right, and see where can we adjust, where can we see things that are necessary in order to add more inclusion, right? There's certainly things we're overlooking, especially if we're not part of the LGBT community, right? If we're cis human being, you don't often see that, right? You're kind of blinded to it, and so I would be welcome to that work and welcome to doing that work.
I agree very much. I agree with the statement that was issued, the principles underlying it, of course, and would love to see a continued sort of enforcement of that policy and making sure that we're extending a welcome hand to all the students who choose to come into our district. In terms of the second part of your question, how would I hold and expand that commitment? This is the kind of work I do every day. Students here in K through 12 are beginning to explore their different diverse identities, but when they reach the collegiate level, they really are free to make that much more public and affirming. And I work with these great range of such students, and it's a delight to be able to sit with them and talk with them about the challenges they faced while they were in the K through 12 environment, the challenges they dealt with with their families and friends and peers. And so being able to bring that wisdom to this experience to say, let me kind of help you see what the students later talk about what happened to them in this setting. I think that would be quite a help, and I definitely want to continue to affirm and stay.
I'm excited about this question. So along with elementary ed, my undergrad was in cultural anthropology. And I just feel like that applies itself so well to situations I never imagined. But in particular at this point, I do feel like there is somewhat of a war on LGBT students, students of color, Black history, neurodiverse populations from the state government. And that's a grave concern of mine. I think one of the things that is a huge concern is that separation of church and state, and making sure that Maplewood is able to kind of, and is able to really respect the religious autonomy of students, the religious diversity that we have in this community, and not kind of have a de facto Christian or Judeo-Christian lens. I think in terms of looking at curriculum, looking at what language is used from the earliest grades, looking at witnessing whiteness and other programs that really help us to question our own foundations, because I feel like it's one thing to acknowledge that there are these problems, and it's another to recognize your own role in it, and to be able to create a safe space to recognize that. And so I think that kind of training is certainly beneficial. I think, there was a recent report that came out about school libraries, and that banning more books than any other state. And so looking at how does even the books around us, the posters that are in the hallways, when we call something a Secret Santa, how does it impact the overall comfort level and tone that we set for all students? And then also looking simultaneously at larger policy issues like, the current situation in St. Charles with trans bathroom access, and making sure that we're kind of taking a multi-pronged approach to addressing a variety of types of diversity. MRH has fantastic socioeconomic diversity. How do we make sure that that's also valued and not just seen as something to address, but kind of looked at as it's a great strength of the district to have public housing here. And how do we engage people in taking an active role in celebrating all the different kinds of diversity?
Thank you.
I'm up next. The order for my question will be Brian, Corinne, and Julie. Of the challenges facing the district today, select one that you think is particularly pressing and share how you propose to address it.
It's a great question. So I think, I would pick one that's more immediate and maybe one that pivots a little bit further out, but I'll just start with the one that's immediate. When you look at the climate survey that that the district conducted of the staff and certified staff last spring, I went through that whole report, and there's about 17 of the 60 questions that certified staff were invited to answer, where they rated their experience in the district rather low, and well below 3, and even with the standard deviation, the answers spread just from 2.25 to just about 3 on a 5-point scale. And when you look at those 17 or 18 questions where that happened, I developed a sense of, we have an opportunity to improve staff morale, improve the experience of certified staff in the district, that they feel their voices are valued and welcomed, and they have a greater input. So I think that's one of the more immediate concerns, is to address that. And if you also track that report, the climate survey, the numbers went down from the previous academic year to last academic year. So it wasn't that the numbers had stabilized or were on their way up. They had actually gone down, and I think I counted about 42 of the 60-plus categories. So there's work to be done immediate work to be done in looking for ways, and that's I think that's the purview of this board, to set policies and strategic goals for the district to help improve certified staff.
So many, but I think one that really sticks out to me is mental health needs of students, especially in a post-COVID era. How do we engage students into the classroom? How do we not put additional pressure on families when they are experiencing COVID to be, a 95% attendance goal, and balancing that with, okay, but what is the mental health need of that student? What is the mental health need of that family? Additional things like, suicide prevention, awareness of eating disorders in schools. Schools have really become the front line for detecting mental health concerns through Children's Service Fund and other grants. There is money available these days in terms of bringing therapists into the school setting, collaborating with some of these outside organizations. And I think it's something that is really falling through the cracks. Not necessarily in MRH, but just kind of on a broader level. I think so much of the COVID reform focused on masking and getting kids back into the classroom, which is phenomenal, but we're still seeing those impacts, and I would anticipate that we're going to continue to see those impacts from kids who missed out on those kind of coping skills that were taught in the classroom, either outright or kind of more tacitly, and being able to create a culture that is open to students expressing things like suicidal ideation and not panicking, while at the same time having a thoughtful, strategic response to that, and making sure that supports are available to families as well as students to address all of that homeless substance use by significantly affecting the order.
Yeah, so mine is staff retention, probably is something I find most pressing. It's something that I, even as working for PTO or working as a parent, are trying to figure out, what can I even do just as a parent, right? And so, snacks, coffee, whatever it takes, something to put a smile on their face. But I realize there's bigger issues, right? And so, what I want to do immediately is really work on building some more rapport and trust with the staff. Encourage them not to have those conversations about what they really want behind that closed door. We found that out at the daycare. They would all sit in a corner and talk about what they really wanted, but they'd never tell the president of what they really wanted, something simple, right, or something a little larger. And it's not always money, right? And we find in a post-COVID world, people are seeking something else, I think, from their lives, right? There's a missing piece. And they may not even know what they want, right? And so I think it's up to the board, to us as even families and parents in the district to really help them navigate that and learn what this new norm is and how we can support them. And so I always, like I said, though, many of you have probably seen me in the PTO, and it's always, asking for money or for fruit donations because, I'm huge on that because that's what my grandma always said. If you can't help, just feed them. But I know we need to do more than that, and I will pledge to definitely, look deeper and look for that more.
I just have one follow-up question. So Brian, I just wanted to make sure that you were able to give your complete answer because I believe you said that you had a current issue and then a long-term one. Was that incorporated into your answer? Or?
Well, yeah, it has multiple stages, I think, to it in terms of development.
But just the same topic?
Yeah, it's on the same topic.
Okay, never mind.
I'll be giving the last question. Good evening. In the same order like we did before, Corinne, Julie, and Brian. My question is, if you are appointed to the board seat, do you plan to file the April election? Why or why not?
I don't know that I've decided yet. I would love to say that I get appointed to the board. It's a phenomenal appointment. Everything gets completed and it's a great situation. But quite honestly, if I feel like I'm not the most effective candidate that could be filling that seat, and that there's other representation that needs to be at the table, I don't feel attached to that seat in a way that I would be open to kind of considering what other needs the district has, and in particular, what representation and what voices need to be on that board.
I would certainly file. For me, this is a long-term commitment. This wouldn't be a single thing. You can't make change in a few months. And I don't think in a few months I could actively even commit or contribute as much as I probably could over the course of learning, over even a year or 2 years. I know in a lot of the volunteer experiences I have, even my own job, it takes 6 months to figure out, to get up to speed, and then another 6 months to really figure out where you fit, and then that next year is where you really take off and excel. And so I think, if I would be selected, I would certainly, you'd have to get rid of me.
I completely agree with Julie. I think of this as from now until April as my time to learn and just sit and be quiet, read a lot, study a lot, ask lots of questions, learn from the staff and the colleagues here on the board. And so I just feel like I'd be just hitting my stride by April. And I would look definitely, yes, I do plan to file.
Do we have other questions for the candidates? Okay. Hearing none, we will move on to item 3.02. I want to thank our candidates again for spending time giving us extremely thoughtful answers. We, again, are gratified by your interest in this role, and also that we have such 3 highly qualified candidates. That is fantastic, and we appreciate your commitment to the district. So,
Thank you.
Would you like to
stay or?
You can stay, yeah. If you're comfortable, please do. I will now entertain nominations for appointment to the unexpired position of Director of the MRH Board of Education. Do I have any nominations?
I move to nominate Julie Francois for the unexpired term appointment.
Are there any other nominations?
I move to nominate Brian. I don't remember his last name.
Matz.
Matt, was it?
Matz.
Matz, Mr. Matz, to the board.
Are there any other nominations?
Oh my God, this is hard. I'm going to nominate Brian Matz.
We just need one nomination
well,
per.
okay.
Yeah. So if one candidate has been nominated, okay. All right, so we have 2 nominations before us. I will now close nominations, and this gets to be the tricky part. Okay. Can I get a motion and a second to appoint Julie Francois to the Board of Education? We're going to take 2 motions, put them on the table, and then we're going to vote on them. If that makes sense.
I make a motion for Julie Francois.
Second.
Can I get a motion and a second to appoint Brian Matz to the Board of Education?
Are you ready? I'll nominate Brian Matz to the Board of Education.
Second.
Okay. So now we'll go into voting. All in favor of appointing Julie Francois, say aye and raise your hand and keep it up momentarily. Aye. 4. All opposed to appointing Julie Francois, please say aye and raise your hand.
Aye.
All in favor of appointing Brian Matz, please raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
All opposed to appointing Brian Matz, please raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes to approve Julie Francois as our new MRH Board of Education Director. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay. We will now move immediately into administering the oath of office. All right. Please raise your hand. I, Julie Francois.
I, Julie Francois,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the constitutions of the state of Missouri,
and the Constitution of the State of Missouri,
and that I will faithfully and impartially
and that I will faithfully and impartially
discharge the duties of school board director
discharge the duties of school board director
in and for the school district of Maplewood, Richmond Heights,
in and for the school district of Maplewood, Richmond Heights,
St. Louis County, Missouri,
St. Louis County, Missouri,
to the best of my ability according to law.
to the best of my ability according to law.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Welcome to the board. Okay.
Thank you.
Can I get a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion, meeting adjourned at 6:58 PM. We will enter our next session in 2 minutes if you'd like to take a break.
Get some coffee. Yeah, I think she will be.